Taking off in 5, 4, 3, 2. Yo, it's your boy, T.O. As you know, it's the motherfucking Fade Podcast, the one-stop shop for everything TV, media, and film related, along with any of the goddamn thing we want to talk about. As you can see, I'm rolling dolo solo. I don't even know if that's the correct phrase. No idea. Just saying things. It's early. It's early in the morning. Brain isn't working quite as well, although I've claimed in the past that my brain worked well in the mornings versus at night, but who knows? Probably doesn't work well overall. Okay, as you can see, I'm by myself. My partner in crime, Rain Real Name, no games, no gimmicks. He is not here this week. Our schedules just did not sync up. I am actually going to be going on a bit of a vacation. And so, we just couldn't link this week because of both of our schedules. So I'm just bringing this video to you because we're going to be gone for a week, and we'll be back next week. But obviously, I want to give you guys a little something for the series finale of Game of Thrones. So let's just jump into the shit. I feel like wasting no time today. Okay, fuck, it's over. It's done. We are at the end of Game of Thrones. The series finale aired Sunday. Is Tuesday, so I had a night or two to sleep on it, to think about it. So I'm gonna break this down by the episode, by the season, and then by the show overall. We're going to jump into it, and I'm going to try to go a little more quicker through it. But before I get to all that, let me get to TV shows overall. Series finales are hard. They're a hard thing because over the course of the years, you've built up, one would figure, if you've gone at the very minimum, let's say 5 seasons, you've built up a shit ton of storylines, most of which you can't just wrap up succinctly unless you've been building for that from day one, unless you, from the onset, how many seasons you're working with. So therefore, how the pacing can go. You can plot that out well ahead of time. But a lot of shows don't know when they're going to be back from season to season. They're waiting every season to find out if they're going to be back. So it leaves you in this precarious position where you want to start some things, but then also you don't know if you're going to be able to conclude those things. And then there's even the question of, should you conclude those things? Should things just be left open? Should you have to wrap everything up in a nice little bow, so everybody gets the ending that they think they want and or deserve? So series finales are hard. A lot of people hold in high regard the Breaking Bad series finale. I don't. I thought Breaking Bad was probably arguably one of the greatest series, if not the greatest series of all time. But the series finale to me was kind of bland. Walter grows his hair back out and, kills a couple people and then saves Jesse. And the only useful thing in that episode was that he finally admitted to his wife that he's not doing all of this just for them, that he's essentially kind of doing it for himself. He liked, he liked slinging the dope, not dope, meth, I suppose in that case, but he loves slinging it. So anyways, I'm digressing from my point, but I didn't really care for the series finale of Breaking Bad. I thought it was, I don't know. It just wasn't necessarily what I was looking for. And I don't even know what I was looking for out of the series finale of Breaking Bad. But for me, it missed the mark a little bit in that it didn't really try to do anything. It just kind of concluded the story in a very sort of typical fashion. And that, I think, is a way that series finales can go. You depending on the show, it can go either way. It can go, hey, let's just try to end this on a really muted note, not trying to fuck it up, in the very last episode, or they can go balls to the fucking wall and just do all sorts of crazy shit, do things that are just counter to everything that we've learned over the past X amount of years. So I preface this whole thing with series finales are hard, admittedly speaking. You try to wrap everything up, and sometimes you either go against everything that you've built up, or you just lean super hard into it and you don't try anything sort of different. You just you produce something kind of boring. So getting to the series finale of Game of Thrones, let me start with the episode itself, and I believe the episode is called The Iron Throne. Okay, so obviously we're picking up where we left off, where Daenerys has just burned down King's Landing, extra crispy. She made it, and and then everybody else has sort of their decision to make in terms of what's their response going to be. So we get Jon. I think one of the first scenes is Jon, obviously Tyrion walking through the city, looking at the carnage, and then obviously him looking for Jaime and Cersei, and then we get Jon and Grey Worm. They have a pretty dope scene where Grey Worm basically shows he gives precisely zero fucks anymore. That he's a killing fucking machine. And so you get to see that interaction was pretty dope. But the thing that jumped off the page to me, which I think for a lot of people it probably did, was Jon and Tyrion's conversation that they had, because it was essentially everything that we've been talking about for the past week or so, considering Daenerys' decision. And if you go back in this podcast, it's sort of what I predicted, and I can kind of get into my predictions too, because I definitely have some egg on my face, because I definitely made some pretty bold predictions that never really came true, even remotely. Although in some ways I would argue some of them, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But so Tyrion and Jon are talking, and Tyrion is basically telling Jon, hey, we cheered for her when, she was doing all this crazy shit. It's only just now that, if we're going to give somebody absolute power, or somebody has absolute power, then it's at their whim to decide what's good and what's bad. Right. I think that's what Tyrion was essentially trying to tell Jon. And he's basically saying, hey, you just got to go two pieces at one time, just go ahead and give her, the shang and let it be done, so I thought that was a fantastic conversation that they had. And even before that, obviously Tyrion gets locked up because he throws down, he goes to Daenerys, and he throws down the hand pin that obviously she gave him. And I thought that was bold, man. That was him just being like, you know what? You fucking killed my family. You destroyed King's Landing, even though you promised that you wouldn't, if they surrendered. There's no more, hiding in the shadows about this. Like you're the thing that you wanted to destroy. You're not destroying the wheel. You're just a bigger wheel, that you essentially destroyed the wheel in order to replace it with your wheel. So yeah, I thought that was a fucking dope scene. I thought she was going to kill him immediately. I guess perhaps I have a little confusion as to what they were ultimately planning to do with him. But then on top of that, the fact that they had Jon go visit him was hilarious. It was, I think when we were watching it, Rain, he said something to the tune of like, I don't know. It was something to the tune of like, yo, why the fuck can anybody just stroll up there and fucking visit Tyrion? Like, is it just like, what the fuck are the visiting hours? I thought that was a little strange, but whatever. I can get past that. and Jon killing Daenerys, was obviously the big buildup. I thought I was fine with that. I was fine with the decision that, Jon kills Daenerys. To me, that's the kind of the ordinary way to go with it. I think that's kind of predictable, which is why I don't think I really cared about predicting it, because that's the most obvious sort of scenarios, is that Jon then has the decision, to sort of go against what he thinks is right, and kill Daenerys, and not to mention that he, at least one point in time, loved her, like you would, any other, person you're romantically interested in. But obviously he finds out that she's his aunt, so then shit gets a little weird, but I think he still loved her at the end of the day. But yeah, so he shanks her. Drogon comes up, melts the fucking Iron Throne in a fit of rage, which I still haven't landed on whether I think was whether I like that or not. I don't know. I thought it was kind of heavy-handed in a way, because then we're to assume that Drogon knew that essentially the Iron Throne, metaphorically speaking, was the reason why Daenerys died, that her greed for it essentially led to her death. If the dragons are that smart, then I feel like a couple of them would have been able to avoid their pending doom. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. And then we sort of get the fallout, which is essentially everybody in the Seven Kingdoms getting together and trying to decide what the fuck to do. Who should be, the king or queen, in this case, now that Daenerys is gone. I still didn't understand why the Unsullied kept both Jon and Tyrion alive. I didn't get that. Why didn't they kill them immediately? And then on top of that, I forget who made this point. I think I was watching something with John Campea. I think I was watching something on John Campea's channel where they mentioned how the fuck did or here's how principled Jon is. He just fucking killed the queen. He knows the Unsullied, at least in my mind, would just kill him on sight, why doesn't he fucking just be like, damn, yeah, Daenerys, she just dipped out for, she now does Uber Eats on, she uses Drogon to do Uber Eats now. So she just went to go deliver some food real quick. She'll be back shortly. I'm going to leave myself. Something just fell down. What the fuck just fell down? But anyways, but yeah, why didn't he just fucking lie to them and say, I don't know, Daenerys just left. I don't know. She was pissed about something. I don't know. She left in rage. I don't know. I guess he's just a very principled person. But I'm also going to get to that and how, I don't know, that they kind of step on their own toes when it comes to some of that stuff. But, so they're deciding what to do. The Unsullied clearly have Jon and Tyrion, so they bring Tyrion out because I guess all the leaders in Seven Kingdom, and then we get possibly the funniest ever line, the funniest ever scene I've ever seen in a show. Fucking the Tully, the dude from the Tully house. I forget what the fuck his name, but he's Catelyn Stark's brother or nephew or some shit. And he's, I think, the son of the what was it called, the Blackfish dude. Anyways, so he's from House Tully, and he they're like, hey, who should be, the king now, or the queen now? And everybody's kind of quiet and looking around at each other. And then he stands up and starts rattling off, I've been in this battle, I've been in that battle. And then the funniest shit in the world, Sansa delivers the most hilarious line. She goes, Uncle, sit down. Holy shit. The amount of disrespect that was just encapsulated in one line was immense. Oh my God. That was the funniest shit I've ever seen. She's just like, Uncle, sit the fuck down. Nobody gives a shit about you. Like, let's all be honest. It was classic. It was hilarious. It was worth it to get to just that point, honestly. But yeah, a lot of, they keep talking, and then they ask Tyrion what he thinks, and he basically throws out Bran. Not before what's his name, Sam throws out the idea of possibly saying democracy, let the people decide who they want, and everybody takes a second and they laugh at him, which I think is an appropriate response for, if they would have came with the whole, oh, now we're going to institute democracy, true democracy, then yeah, I think that would have been just kind of silly, honestly, for that time period, for the people we're dealing with. It just would have been, I don't think it would have been appropriate. But Bran being king, let's talk about that. So Tyrion throws out Bran for reasons which I honestly still don't understand. I guess he's saying, who more capable of leading than the person who went beyond the wall, came back. But I would fucking argue he didn't do any of that shit himself. In fact, he literally did nothing. So it's not as if like fucking Jojo died. What is his name? Jojo, right? Jojo died fucking helping him. His sister, and I forget what her name is, but she fucking basically carried him on her back all the way fucking there and back. Hodor died fucking getting Bran there. Benji or Benjen, whatever the fuck his name is, he fucking had a hand in play in it. So it's like kind of silly to propose that it's fucking Bran, because Bran didn't really do shit. Bran touched the fucking wood and fucking had a everlasting orgasm. That's really all he fucking did the entire time. And somehow that makes him deserving of being a king. I think the whole angle of him being in a wheelchair, I think that kind of tracks, that kind of makes sense, that, you give it to the, person who's, he's not going to go off to some fucking war. But then I don't know, it's silly either way. Like Joffrey wasn't fucking super excited about going off the fucking war and doing shit right himself, but he still commanded other people to do it. And then on top of that, Bran is kind of like apathetic. He doesn't give a shit about anything really, and he does have the line of, that Tyrion, I forget what Tyrion says beforehand, but Bran goes, why do you think I came all this way? And I think that's a weird line, considering, I guess, everything we know about Bran, although that kind of tracks into my theory that, Bran's been sort of manipulating everything from the get-go, or the three-eyed raven has. And they say Bran is king, but then Bran has said repeatedly, I'm not the three-eyed raven, or I'm not Bran, I'm the three-eyed raven. So yeah, I guess the three-eyed raven was positioning himself to be king in this case. But the problem is the three-eyed raven has not demonstrated, like, we don't know what the fucking three-eyed ravens, the purpose is. So we've got the three-eyed raven, but we don't know what his ends are. So it's kind of silly to put him there if we don't really know what his motives are. Also, we don't know if he really gives a fuck about anybody in the fucking, Seven Kingdoms. He knows everybody's history, but I don't know. It just, Bran was a weird choice to me. Apparently Vegas had odds that Bran was gonna take the Iron Throne. Somebody definitely had some fucking inside knowledge there, because there is no other reason why we would point to Bran as taking the fucking throne. He didn't seem like he wanted it, nor was it really ever hinted at. Nor do I think he's deserving of it because he went beyond the wall and back. He literally didn't do it himself, and he didn't really help out in any sort of meaningful way. But anyways. So let's just talk about how everybody sort of ended up, what they ended up doing. Let's start with start with Tyrion. Tyrion becomes, or Bran makes Tyrion the hand, and Tyrion says, I don't fucking want it. I failed at this a whole bunch of times. And Bran is basically like, well, that's what you're going to spend your life fixing everything that you broke. Yeah, whatever. It's cool, I guess. but then you see Tyrion with, his, the council of, I forget what the fuck they call that, small council or whatever the fuck they call it, which I think the small council is effectively supposed to basically be like a pseudo Congress, perhaps. Maybe that's what they're trying to institute. That Bran's essentially the president and the Congress is Tyrion and everybody else. So in a weird way, kind of democracy, although obviously nobody voted them in. I think that's kind of bland. It's kind of whatever. I think, the whole scene with them was funny there in the end, where they're, you got Bronn, and I think it was, who was it? Davos. I think it was Bronn, Davos, and I don't know, a couple other people. And then, I just thought that whole scene was funny, but also kind of like, whatever, in terms of what their actual placement was. And then also, side note, we got Brienne. I think she's the Kingsguard. I think she's the commander of the Kingsguard now, based on the plating of her armor, which I think that was pretty dope. I think that was something that she was looking forward. She was looking for something of that nature. Obviously, when she was with not Stannis, but Renly. When she was with Renly, obviously she wanted to be a part of the Kingsguard. So she kind of got what she wanted in the end. And then she wrote, finished Jaime's story there in I guess the book of the Kingsguard commanders, I guess it was. That was pretty dope. I actually really, really liked that. I thought that was a good kind of nice touch that they put on there. Who else? Obviously, let's talk about the Starks. You have before we talk about the Starks, let's talk about Drogon and Daenerys. So Drogon takes Daenerys and dips out, and they say that he's last spotted heading east. I guess there's a rumor that perhaps Drogon's taking Daenerys to, I guess, wherever the Targaryens originated from. Cool, I guess. I don't know. I don't think that really matters. Unless it's about some sort of resurrection thing, I really don't give a shit. It doesn't really matter. But then, okay, let's talk about the Starks. So we've got Sansa, who becomes, during this whole thing where Bran becomes the king, she basically says, hey, love you, little brother, but also, we're not going to fucking bend the knee to you, which is extreme disrespect. Your sibling just becomes king, and your immediate response is to defy him. But I liked it. I think that falls in line with Sansa's character. And I think that's cool. Although it's kind of like, I don't know to what end, I guess obviously the North is an independent kingdom. It kind of do whatever fuck it wants. But then I don't know what that means. I mean, do they still trade? Do they still, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know. It's just, there are a lot of fucking questions there that we unfortunately don't get the answer to. Then we have Jon Snow going to he gets, for his crime of killing Daenerys, which he found some reason to admit to. He gets exiled to the Night's Watch again. And I guess he didn't get exiled originally, but yeah, he gets sent to the Night Watch. And you would assume that he becomes like the Lord Commander, but then he gets there immediately and is like, all right, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm going back up north with, the Wildlings, which is the final scene of the show mirrors the opening scene where, the Night's Watchmen are heading up north past the wall. So that final scene is just sort of it harkens back to that first scene of the show. Jon going back up, north. I kind of knew he was going to go back up north. I definitely thought it was going to be as that fucking Night King, and I'm definitely sad that they didn't even fucking touch on that storyline again since the Night King died. I think that's kind of weird, but perhaps they're leaving all the questions we have for that up for I think they're producing the Long Night spinoff, which I'll get to there. I think that's sort of what we got a big dose of here, is just the possibility of spinoffs. But yeah, John going back up north. I thought that was the safest thing that they could do with John. He kills the queen. The Unsullied can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want with him at that moment in time, and they don't choose to kill him. I'm very confused. What were they waiting for? Who are they waiting for orders from? Like, what's if somebody just kills your queen? You just fought a war so that your queen could take the 7 kingdoms. You won the war, and then the dude kills your queen, and you're like, you're in timeout, mister. You're in timeout. Like, what? But anyways, So John gets exiled to Night's Watch, which honestly for him is a double win. Not only does he kind of just get to piss off and not have to deal with anything concerning the fucking 7 kingdoms anymore, he's fucking to see Tormund again. He gets to see Ghost. He gets to just kind of just go chill, and what the fuck more could you want than that? If you're Jon Snow, literally, I don't think there could have, even if nothing happened with Daenerys, even if with all that shit, like literally nothing else could have been better case scenario for him than to just head up beyond the wall and just go chill. And then, of course, we have Arya, who is heading west. She has the line, I believe it was in season 6, where she says, "Hey, I wonder what's beyond." What's west of Westeros, and she goes exploring. And this is what I mean by spinoffs. I think that if I fucking didn't know any better, I would say that they're definitely setting Arya up for her own show. But I think we would have heard something about that by now if Maisie Williams is going to get the show. But it just feels like she's getting set up for her own show. I think, Arya being an explorer, and then also Arya never really getting to use her skills, right? Like she's one of the faceless men, and yet she never, outside of killing Walder Frey, and I think that's pretty much it. That's the only person who she really uses that on. She just basically heads, she doesn't ever use that skill again. And so it's like, we'd love to fucking see her use her skills. But it really does feel like they're setting her up for her own sort of thing. Okay. So I think we talked about everybody. And then, I think I already talked about Bran. And then, so overall, I thought the episode was, I thought it was safe. I thought it was very safe. And then obviously, I think what they kept sort of saying is, hey, when you look at the last 3 episodes, like a long movie, you get it. And that's true. I think you do. I think the people who have objections to, they don't like how anything turned out, I think they aren't looking at it as a totality. But if we're just judging this episode on its own, it was just kind of a bland episode. And I think that's what the problem is when you shoot these things where they're episodic, but you shoot them as sort of like one long movie. They have to be a movie within a movie. You can't just say we shot this thing and it's just one long movie, because then your movies, you have like a fucking 5-hour movie, and that just seems boring, because those scenes that, the usual beats that we're looking for in a movie, we're not getting. We're getting just these extended like scenes where now we just take our time with shit. Like we're one characters, and I think I just saw right before I came on this great sort of video of the reason why or everybody's basically walking in the finale. Shout out the Rain finale. Inside joke from the Fate podcast. Where everybody's just walking, and that's what eats up fucking half the time in the episode, is just people walking from one place to another. That's what you're going to get when the actual episode itself doesn't adhere to the rules of the usual beats of an actual film. And I think that's what one glaring mistake that I see from them is that they didn't make each specific episode its own. The issue with making it one long movie is that you need to make each episode its own movie as well. It's a hard balancing act, but I don't think that they stuck the landing when it comes to it. So I think, overall, I don't think they stuck the landing with the episode. I think they stuck the landing with the season, but not the episode. And then additionally, I don't think they stuck the landing with the series overall. And I'll explain why here in a sec. Considering the season, had a lot of great moments that I thought were dope. For everybody who's giving it shit in terms of, oh, nothing in here makes sense. I think that they're wrong. I think that they're not looking at it in its totality. I think they're being incredibly short-sighted. I think history will be fond of Game of Thrones, although in this new age of, Rotten Tomato scores, perhaps it won't. I don't know. I think when I look back to other series finales like, The Sopranos, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, I have mixed feelings. The Sopranos I thought was spectacular, although people, hated it. But again, I binged it, The Sopranos. I didn't watch it from the beginning. I binged it, and then I watched it series finale, which changed the way that I looked at it. I think I looked at it a lot differently than other people, that they've been watching the show for 7-8 seasons and then it ends without really knowing sort of how it ended. I think people can feel slighted that they've invested a lot of fucking time in this. For me, it was just like, it was like I watched a long fucking movie, But and when I think of like Mad Men, I thought, it was okay season finale or series finale. But again, I think they all suffer from the same thing, which is you're never going to be able to please everybody, so why try? Just tell the story that you want to tell. That gets me to the show overall. Tell the story that you want to tell. Here's my inherent problem with Game of Thrones. I thought the entire series was simply fantastic, with the exception of the ending. And the reason why, in Game of Thrones, at least from my perspective, the show as a whole, it's hard to boil down exactly what it's about. But to me, it boils down to one central, simple question, but the hardest question for us as humanity strives to sort of answer or deal with, which is, what do you do with bullies? That's essentially, to me, the central Q&A of Game of Thrones is, what do you do with bullies? And it sounds like a very simple and kind of whatever question, but it's one that in human history we've never really been able to resolve, at least in a true and meaningful way. And the reason why it's such a central question is because, okay, you have somebody who's a bully, and you have a couple different options, right? You can just let them run roughshod over you, and let them sort of dominate you, which that doesn't seem preferable. You can fight back. But when you fight back, the problem becomes you essentially, especially if you end up winning, right, you essentially become a bigger bully. Like that's the only things that bullies really respond to are bigger bullies, right? And that's what Game of Thrones touched on, that central question. How do you break the wheel without just becoming another wheel? And that's a beautiful question. And they take 8 seasons and do it in such a methodical way that we're cheering on Daenerys this entire time, when the entire time she's just being a bigger bully than the people she's saying is a bully. And then when she ran out of people to call bullies, she's still a bully herself. So she has to justify it. So to justify it in her mind, she has to say, oh no, I'm helping people. I'm still liberating the world from bullies. So that justifies me in being the bully that I am. Beautiful fucking question. And in the end, they not only don't answer the question, but they aggressively try not to answer the question, right? They aggressively try not to answer it. And that's why I think I might have mentioned before that the whole Jon killing Daenerys thing, I'm fine with Jon killing Daenerys, but then it steps on the toes of the thing that you're trying to answer. So for instance, it's very weird that we're all looking at this like, oh, that was Tyrion wants Jon to kill Daenerys. But I mean, am I the only one who thinks that then makes Jon just as bad as, not just as bad, but pretty much Daenerys in that case? Like, why do we have such a problem with what Daenerys is doing, but are okay with what Jon's doing, right? So Daenerys is a conqueror, and she goes places, and she says, "Hey, I'm liberating people from tyrants, and so I'm killing them." Earlier on in the show, we thought she was completely justified because she was dealing with people, back when she was dealing with people in Marine, right? She was liberating slaves, and so we were like, hey, that's cool. You killed the masters and you freed the slaves. We're all good with that. And then it got to a point where it's just like, you're not just killing masters anymore, you're just killing people, isn't that what the fuck Jon just did? Right? He sees a person who he believes is is not just a bully, but going to be an extreme bully, and he's like, I gotta get rid of her. In that case, I think what's being said is that she thought she was justified in what she was doing, right? And Jon thought he was justified in what he was doing. So he was essentially, hey, I've got to kill her for the betterment of the Seven Kingdoms, right? Because she's going to slaughter so many fucking people because she believes she's helping them, in many ways. But then he just becomes her in that case, which is not trying to answer the question. It's just kicking the can down the road. It's just, they asked a brilliant question when it comes to Daenerys, which is, how do you deal with tyrants, without becoming the tyrant yourself? If you look back in human history, all of the empires that have both risen and fallen, they've basically just been replaced, right? And in different ways, so perhaps you're not the same. You're not a bully the same because you don't go and slaughter millions. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you're not, starving your people. You're not hoarding wealth, or you're not, just a whole, list of fucking things that, you're doing to essentially have power, hold power, and make sure that everybody basically falls lockstep into what you want to do. I think Daenerys had the line that, or he says, well, what do we know is right? And Daenerys, she says, or who decides what's right? And Daenerys goes, well, we know what's right. What's right is what we say. And that shit is the truth. The world is run by people who believe that they know what is right, but this always the central question is, okay, well, what happens when somebody comes along who truly does believe that they're right and has the fucking power behind them to enact their vision of what they believe is right? Because in order to put forth your vision of what you believe is right, you've got to make people bend towards your will. And sometimes reason isn't going to be enough, right? Logic is not going to be enough. So you're going to have to enforce it somehow. And that's usually with fire and blood, which is what Daenerys, kept saying. So I think that's what my disappointment with the series is overall. I think they asked a very brilliant question in a very, very brilliant way, but then they never attempt to answer the question. They just kind of kept kicking the can down the road of not even remotely trying to answer that very, very, very hard question. And it's not one that I'm sure has an answer, a correct answer, but at least attempt to answer it, be bold. I think that's what would have been bold to me is if they attempted to answer that question. Maybe we would have thought it was stupid. Maybe we would have thought it was dumb. But perhaps try to answer it. But then perhaps it was out of their hands because perhaps that's how George R. R. Martin wants to, end the story. Perhaps that's what he wanted to end on. And so perhaps that's what we get in the end. So I think overall, the episode, I didn't really care for this series finale, but it kind of is what it is. I'm not one of those sloppy people who's like, oh, I'm going to go sign a petition to get people, to get the season redone. It's like, no, you were okay with them writing the shit previously. I don't give a shit if George R. R. Martin was helping them or not. You were relatively okay with the show pretty much up until this point, but now that it's over, you're like, oh, well, we need to get some incompetent writers on the show. Like they haven't fucking been writing the show all along, regardless of if George R. R. Martin was helping them. They're still the showrunners. They're still the person who created this world visually, as well as thematically, that we're seeing on screen. Martin I'm sure obviously gave his input into it, certainly speaking, but he wasn't the one making all of those specific decisions as far as the show goes. That was them. They created this world that we're seeing, and now we want to abandon ship because it didn't go the way that we wanted it to go. But I think that goes to my weirdly, central, result of the show is, make your own shit, man. Instead of fucking complaining about, oh man, we deserve better from Game of Thrones, or, we deserve a better story that makes sense. If you believe all of that shit, if you believe that, they didn't do a good job, and you think that you could have done or that somebody else could have done better, you do better. Go write your own shit, and make it exactly what you want. I guarantee you'll be in the same boat as them, if you do have fan base as big as they do, that you're just not going to please everybody, and everybody's going to have some sort of feelings about your shit one way or another. And there comes a point where the thing you create is larger than you, and you can no longer control how people feel about it. Not that you ever really can, but when it gets to a certain point, you're just never going to be able to control the, how people feel about it. And so, yeah. I think I the episode itself, I was kind of, whatever about, the season. I actually liked the season. If it were me, the thing that I probably would have changed, I would have made the long night like half the season. I would have just made half the season in darkness. Just because it seemed like it was such a large part of the show from the very beginning, and then it just kind of seemed like it just went away, and so I would have made that a larger part of the season. But I'm fine with their decision to make it only one episode. But I stylistically I would have made it so that was half the season, so that all this 7 seasons of build up was thoroughly dealt with. Outside of that, I really like the season. The show overall, I think I love the show overall. I think it's clearly one of the greatest shows of all time. I just don't think that they stuck the landing. I think that at least for me, they missed it. I think generally speaking, they hit the mark, but for me, for what I thought the question was for the show, and where it ultimately sort of ended up, I don't think it really, hit the mark for me as far as that goes. But that is what it is. I'm glad I watched it. Glad I was along for the ride in the 2 months that it took me to watch the show. And I think that's what I'm going to start doing. I think I'm going to start not seeing a show live, but waiting until, they get to like their final season, because I think that's how you, in a weird way, I think that's how you should watch a show. Because, and I was thinking about this, and I thought about this a while ago, that when you watch a show and you're watching it week to week, season to season, live as it's happening, you tend not to be able to see everything in its totality because you just forget shit. But the writers don't, the show creators don't. Hopefully most of the time they don't. But they're looking at the show. They're combing through everything with a fine-tooth comb, ideally speaking. And so there's things that connect, things that trace back to this and that, and things that thematically we can't see because the thing that they're referring to was 2-3 seasons ago, and we just can't remember that. So I think in a weird way, we should be just binging these shows and watching them in large chunks, because in a weird way, that's essentially how they're writing the shows, right? That they're writing them in a totality versus week to week to week. It's not as if they're writing them every week and then putting them out. They're writing it. They're looking at the series overall. And then they come back each season and they reverse engineer it. They say, hey, where do we want to end up and how do we get there? And how does that trace back to the beginnings of the show? So yeah, I think I'm going to start doing that. I'm doing that currently with Power. I think I'm going to do that with I think we're going to be in the final season, I think, of the Handmaid's Tale. So I'm going to watch that next. And then there was another show. There's the show on FX, Legion. I haven't watched season 2 of it, but I think they're going to show this season 3 of it, which I think is going to be the final season. So yeah. I'm gonna binge those, and I think that's how I want to start to do it from now on, because I think that's the better way to watch a show is by doing it in big chunks, so you can see the connecting threads through the entire show versus just watching episode week to week, season to season, and forget half the shit you're watching. So ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of this particular show. This wasn't a full show. This is just my thoughts, because I'm not going to be here this week, and we will not be doing a show until next Wednesday, I believe. But yeah, I definitely want to at least kick out some thoughts on the series finale of Thrones. So let me know what you guys think. What did you guys think of the series finale? How'd you feel about it? What'd you like? What you didn't like? Do you think it was fitting for the episode? Did you think the season overall was good fitting? Did you think the show overall accomplished its goals? Let me know. Comment in the comment section, talk to me, let me know what's good. And yeah, as always, if you listen this long, then you're definitely a fan of the podcast, but hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and then hit that share button. Share the podcast with anybody and everybody who you think could benefit from our strong analysis. Yeah, and yeah, we'll be back next week. Till then, ladies and gentlemen, I think we'll go ahead and hit the usual fucking protocol. Fade out. Peace.